All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. Congressman Jim Banks has collected a historic endorsement ahead of next year's primary. The Indiana Republican Party officially endorsed Banks in its state dinner Thursday night. It's the first time in history that the party has endorsed someone before the primary. It means Banks can now receive support from the National Republican Party. Meanwhile, Indiana's senior senator says he's not decided who to support in the Republican presidential primary. He talked about that and why he doesn't yet support any new bans on artificial intelligence with our government reporter Garrett Berquist.
Let's bring in Senator Todd Young. Senator, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me on.
So you have a number of proposals that made it into the Senate version of the defense bill, and I want to begin with the CHIPS permitting language. Right now, how much do you believe red tape delays the construction of new microchip manufacturing facilities?
Well, we hear from the major manufacturers that it's a major impediment to reshoring in the United States. It's one of the cost drivers that they have to factor in when they consider whether or not to locate in places like Indiana.
Are there any sites here in Indiana that you think specifically might benefit from that particular language?
Really, any place in Indiana that may be the location of a future semiconductor manufacturing site will be positively impacted by this change in law that we've been able to facilitate through the Senate, at least. This will reduce the hurdle rate, or the rate that is required for a return on investment to the semiconductor manufacturer, and make the entire state of Indiana more appealing to them.
I want to turn to the issue of AI. You've said that you don't necessarily think we'll have to come up with a bunch of new bans of what you can and cannot do with this technology. Right now, what do you think is the way forward in terms of regulating AI?
Well, that's right. We need to make sure that existing laws pertaining to bias against certain racial or ethnic groups, or the transparency that consumers should have into how different technologies work, or even the privacy regulations that should be applied to very sensitive and potentially dangerous technologies like those required to produce weapons or super germs. We need to make sure that our laws can apply to circumstances that relate to AI. That's going to take a lot of expertise within government that we don't currently have, and it's also going to take an ongoing and searching effort by members of Congress as well as those in the executive branch to make sure that we identify when those risks emerge.
Once you've got a set of regulations in place, though, how do you maintain those regulations? I mean, AI advances very rapidly. Look at, I believe it's Moore's Law says computing power doubles about every 18 months.
That's exactly right. And the amount of data that's being collected to feed into these models, to train them, and then to run the models continues to grow. The processing power is rapidly increasing, as you've alluded to, and we're going to see the world changing, our economy changing, and even our national security posture changing more quickly than we have in the past. So what is needed, again, is to get people within government who have expertise in artificial intelligence and can understand some of the challenges and opportunities, I should emphasize, that confront us. The opportunities are manifold, almost too difficult for any one individual to assess, but we know that coming up with cures to cancer or Alzheimer's disease will certainly be in the mix in coming years or decades as we look at the evolution of this technology. But we need people who understand new risk and new opportunities and can craft a narrowly tailored regulatory environment so that innovators can do their thing, but we can also mitigate risks that I mentioned.
House Republicans included language around abortion and gender-affirming care for transgender service members. Those provisions did not make it into the Senate version. Do those issues belong in the National Defense Bill?
Listen, I think it's fair game to debate those issues and other so-called social issues within the context of a national defense bill. I would especially underscore the abortion debates we've had. It's understandable that we're going to have some very difficult conversations in the wake of the Dodd's decision, which upset, decades-old law from the Supreme Court. So. It's understandable and healthy that we're having these debates. I think in the end, we're going to have to come up with a compromise, Republican House, Democrat-controlled Senate piece of legislation, and it's likely that that social policy won't find its way into the final bill.
What's your reaction to the indictment that was revealed last week against former President Trump?
Very serious charges. And they need to be taken seriously. They should not in any way be diminished or dismissed by Americans. That's why I'm not doing that. But I would also say that President Trump, whatever one thinks of him, is deserving of due process, and we'll have to make sure that that indeed takes place in coming months.
You've already said you will not support former President Trump in 2024. Have you decided who you will support? What do you think of Mike Pence's candidacy, for example?
I have not decided who I will support. I have joined a growing number of conservative Americans who think it's time to move on, time to find another leader with fewer distractions, someone who can advance conservative values, and frankly, someone who can beat Joe Biden come November of next year. I think that Vice President Pence would restore a lot of dignity, respect for the Constitution of the United States, and a lot of trust in the Oval Office. I think that's very important, and I'm still open to supporting his candidacy and others. I do, however, want to emphasize once again, I think it's important that we find someone else to carry the Republican banner as we head into November of next year.
Well, coming up, we continue our series on candidates for mayor with someone running in the shadow of the Indianapolis mayor's office and race. Welcome back. Beech Grove is home to Amtrak's largest maintenance facility. It's one of a few Marion County towns that are not subject to the consolidated city-county government, and Mayor Dennis Buckley is not seeking another term. This week, we hear from the Republican candidate for that office, Rick Skirvin.
Let's welcome in Rick Skirvin. Rick, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Why are you running for mayor of Beech Grove?
This is the 90th year that my family has been actively in Beech Grove. There's been a Skirvin living in Beech Grove for 90 consecutive years. My entire adult life I have dedicated to the youth of Beech Grove, 17 years on the school board. I love my city.
You've made public safety a major part of your platform, and you've specifically called for a youth diversion program. What would that entail?
If a youth gets in trouble, that the criminal justice system can do worse than it can do for good. That would keep the youth out of the criminal justice system, identify whether it's something at home or if it's just a guidance issue. But to try to get them on a better path, I think it's good for the city of Beech Grove, city of Indianapolis, and just the state in general.
Beech Grove police say shootings at bars are a growing problem. We just had a double shooting at a bar in Beech Grove at the beginning of the month. How do you plan to tackle that problem specifically?
I think everyone should get involved. I think we should look at maybe times in which alcohol is served. Not so much closing the location, but cutting back on the time on when the alcohol is served. I think we also need to look at Marion County as a whole. I think that gun violence should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The gun laws that we have on record right now are gun laws that I think that we should tap into and not create more, but definitely prosecute to the fullest extent.
And on that note, you've called on the mayors of the other suburbs surrounding Indianapolis to put pressure on the courts to crack down on those convicted of gun violence crimes. How would you go about doing that?
Get with them, have a consortium, and discuss, what our options are as, Unigov cities, Lawrence, Speedway, Beech Grove, and what kind of pressure can we put on the prosecutor's office? Do our best to get elected officials that will follow through and prosecute these gun laws. The recidivity rate of these people that are breaking these laws, getting in trouble, the police are doing their jobs. They're patrolling the streets and locking up these guys, misguided youth, misguided adults, but they're coming right back out again. We need to keep those dangerous individuals in jail.
How do you plan to stabilize home ownership in Beech Grove?
Well, there's a lot of things that we can do. Speaking with some of the realtors that sell homes in Beech Grove, our sale rate is starting to decline a bit. I believe it's down 3% already. Assessed value is a big deal in Beech Grove because we're a landlocked city. So we don't have a whole lot of business. We really rely on that rental tax cap, that 2% tax cap. We really rely on that homeowner 1% tax cap. We've got to bring business to Beech Grove, continue with repairing our streets as we're supposed to. We've got to give our community a destination, something to go to. Continue with our programs that we have in our Parks Department. I'd love to see a splash pad or pool or something like that in Beech Grove, so that they don't have to go to Greenwood or elsewhere to enjoy our city.
What sort of businesses would you like to bring to Beech Grove? And on that note, is Beech Grove too dependent on Indianapolis's economy outside of its city limits as well as Amtrak?
I don't think so. We have a pretty good size of property there over by Amtrak that we can develop. Because of our resources, we're going to have to lean on federal government for funds to get some of these areas cleaned up, because they've been industrial for a long time. As far as any kind of business, that high-paying jobs, we still have a lot of open lots in Beech Grove that I would like to help develop. I don't want to sit and wait. As a business owner myself, I know you can't wait. You have to go after those businesses. So work with our redevelopment commission. Speedway has done a great job with their redevelopment commission and what they've done for Main Street, and that's the same thing that I would like to do for our Main Street.
What makes you the best candidate for this job?
I'm certainly not going to do it for the money. Again, I love my city. I've been around a long time. My grandparents moved here in 1930. I care about my community. I have a vested interest. Obviously I live there. Can't run there if you don't live there. My kids live in Beech Grove. My grandson lives in Beech Grove. I have nieces and great nieces and nephews and nephews that live in Beech Grove. Lots of friends that I've created. I just have the utmost love for the city of Beech Grove.
All right, coming up, controversy at a local library as a popular author shreds the reshelving of one of his most popular books. Indiana's best political team will weigh in. That and more on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Destiny Wells and Republican Allie Bartlett. Good to see you both. I want to begin with the Hamilton East Public Library controversy. The staff had to reshelve Indiana author John Green's novel, The Fault of Our Stars. It was moved from the young adult section to the adult section, as you very well know. Allie, we'll start with you this week. Was this justified? And what do you say to people who say this is the result of conservative rhetoric?
Yeah, so I think it was justified. That's why a library board exists under these rules, is so that the board can take a look at topics like this and decide whether or not these books are appropriate to be in the young adult section or elsewhere. They're not removing them from the library. They're not telling people that they cannot read these books. They're just deciding where the appropriate spot for them is. And really, this all comes down to a matter of local control. This isn't about conservative versus progressive or whatever. This is about how locals feel. Those are the people that are serving on these boards. And so it's a reflection of what the locals feel is appropriate for their library.
Destiny, I'll get to you in a moment, but Allie, I want to just, double down on this for 1 second, because John Green, he was pretty outspoken about it. He did not agree with it. When it comes to the politics of it all, is this a good look?
So again, to me, this shouldn't really be about the politics of it all. This is about giving power to the locals to decide for their communities. These people that are elected to these boards, they are reflective of the communities that they're serving. And so to me, it's not political. It's more just about deciding where the appropriate spot is for certain books based on the desires of these community members who've been, and not desires, but the input of the community members that have been elected to these boards. And so to me, it's not a political thing that we're looking at. It's just a decision. Again, no one's saying that we can't read these books. It's just a matter of where they're located in the library. And it's all about local control. It's a decision made by these local boards. And to me, that's the important part.
Destiny, to Allie's point, shouldn't libraries and the community continually debate, what should be stocked on the shelves?
Yes, and when they continually debate, the public should be listened to. We can say this isn't political, but let's look at who's on this board. Micah Beckwith, the Republican candidate for lieutenant governor, who's trying to undermine his own party's convention process for lieutenant governor, is pushing his personal ideology of the far right. He's on the record talking about being a proponent of white nationalism. Hey, I'm on board with John Green. He's one of our beloved authors. We are lucky that he has stayed in Indiana. This is one of the best, if not best-selling books that is set in Indiana. And John Green is right. And I want to say yes to everybody who's saying Kurt Vonnegut would be rolling over in his grave.
Allie, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I would just respond and say that regardless of who's serving on the board, these people are elected to this board. Like it's all a reflection of the community and the people that they're serving. So we can go around and tell the people that they're wrong all we want, but it's their choice. That is the whole point of this system, is for the people to choose the people that are on this board. It's a reflection of the people, and that's the whole point of the system, so that it's not some decision that's coming from the top. It's a reflection of the people and where they live.
There was no community vote for Micah Beckwith.
Okay, go ahead. You want to?
Go ahead. No, I'm just the point of having a local board is to encourage local control and local input, rather than having this decision made by people that don't even live here.
Okay, well, we'll move on. We got a lot to get to. Let's turn to the unprecedented endorsement of Jim Banks by the state Republican Party. Destiny, could this cause Democrats to maybe do something similar? This gives Banks a big head start in terms of accessing national party resources, right?
It does give him a head start. It's breaking with our norms yet again, breaking with Democratic norms. Look, I feel very passionate about the nomination of Jim Banks. He leads the woke caucus in the House. He messages straight on attacking the Department of Defense. He affects our national readiness. It is felt in the ranks. It is felt by senior leadership. And I'm so disturbed that the Republican Party is able to go so far right so early without any input from the people in their own primary process.
Allie, I'll let you respond. And I also want to ask you, is this fair to the other candidates that maybe want to run for this?
So I will say this is not breaking with anything. This is fully within the power of, it's within the rules of the party process to make this nomination, which is how it was achieved. The party process takes into consideration all the people that are, running or considering running in the primary process. It doesn't impact the primary process. All it is a reflection of the collective views of our state party. And that was a decision that was made by our state party. It doesn't impact, again, the primary process will go go on like, just like normal. The voters will still have a chance to speak. This was all well within the rules of the party structure, and that's just what we elected to do at this point. He's a presumptive nominee out of the primary, and it's very blatant. And Jim Banks is a great candidate. And I would say he is not involved in any woke caucus. It would be an anti-woke caucus. He's also a veteran, served in Afghanistan. So I would say a lot of those claims are pretty baseless.
Destiny, you look like you're about to hop out of your seat. Go ahead.
I'll correct my language, the anti-woke caucus. Obviously, I speak in my personal opinion, but as both a veteran and someone who currently serves in a reserve capacity, I do see the detrimental effects to this anti-woke messaging on our readiness. Our readiness has never been hurting more. We do not have a sitting commandant in the Marines. We are not doing nominations at the GOP level because of similar messaging in this being stopped by a member in the Senate. And this will continue. These were norms. Again, I'm going back to saying
We're going to
norm.
leave it there, ladies. Good to see you both. Thank you so much. Good conversation. As always, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Take All Indiana Politics on the go with you. Download our podcast now. Part of the All Indiana Podcast Network and allindianapodcastnetwork.com.
Well, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.